Okay, so literal equations is talking about equations that have mostly variables and not just numbers. Okay, but I am going to give you an example of this equation as a number. So let's say, for instance, I had 3 equals 2 times 4 times t. And I told you that I wanted you to solve for t. Okay, what would you do first? Well,
4 times 2.
so you would first do 2 times 4, and that would give you 8, right? And then you would divide by 8 on both sides, okay? And then that would mean t equals 3/8, okay? So we're going to implement that exact same thought process. Number 1 is the same thing as what we just did, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're solving for p. We're trying to get this variable right here by itself. So if I have I equals p times r times t, what's the first thing I'm going to do? Divide by rt on both sides. Okay? So that's going to give me p equals I divided by rt. Go ahead and take a second and try to solve for r. Okay? So if you take the original equation right here, you've got I equals p times r times t, and you're trying to solve for r. So you're going to divide by pt on both sides, and that's going to give you r equals I divided by pt. R equals I divided by pt. Okay? On number 2, it says solve for v. So we're trying to get v by itself. So we're going to divide both sides by a. Okay? So we've got w equals va, and we're going to divide by v on both sides. Oh, I'm sorry, divide by a on both sides. Divide by a on both sides so that we can get v by itself. So v is going to equal w divided by a. Go ahead and try b for that one. That means that I'm going to take w equals v divided by a, and I'm going to divide by v on both sides. So a is going to equal w divided by v. Okay? Everybody good so far?
Yeah.
Pretty simple?
Yeah.
All right. So now we've got this next equation, and a lot of people start freaking out because there's pi. Okay? Just think of pi as like a variable or just a number that you're going to get rid of, right? Okay? So in order for us to do this, we're going to isolate r. We're going to get r by itself. So we've got c equals 2 pi r. How do we get r by itself? We're going to divide by 2 pi. Not 2 pi, 2 pi. Okay? So, I know, I'm so funny. All right, so r is going to equal c divided by 2 pi. Okay? Okay, so on number 4, you've got area of a triangle. You've seen that back in Algebra 1. Woo! So a is going to equal 1/2 base times height, right? And we're going to try to solve for b. Okay? So what is b attached to? 1/2 times h, right? So we're going to divide by 1/2 h on both sides. And that's going to cancel out here. And that's also going to cancel out over here. So b is going to equal a divided by, and we can write this as h divided by 2. The reason why we can write this as h divided by 2 is because 1 times h gives us h, and 2 times 1 gives us 2. I want to get rid of this fraction in the denominator. So back in like 6th grade, your teacher taught you keep, change, flip. Yeah? So we kept a, we changed the sign to multiplication instead of division, and then we're going to flip the fraction. So that's going to be 2 over h. Okay? So here it is again. Since there is a fraction in the denominator, we're going to keep the top, change the sign to multiplication, and then flip the fraction. So now we can just multiply straight across. So a times 2 is going to give us 2a. H times 1 is going to give us h. And that is what our b is going to be. Go ahead and take a moment and try to solve for h. It's the same process, except now you're solving for h. You were solving for h. What you're going to do is you're going to get h by itself by dividing by 1/2 b on both sides. Okay? And when you do that, you're going to get h equals a divided by b divided by 2. Now remember, we're not going to leave this in fraction form. We're actually going to do the keep, change, flip method. So we're going to say a times 2 divided by b equals h. So if I wrote this out in one little fraction, I would say h equals 2a divided by b. How many of y'all got that right? So on number 5, it says solve for y, and then it says solve for x. So this is like what you're normally going to see. So you've got 3x plus 2y equals 24. Now, on this first one, it says solve for y, so that means get y by itself. So the first thing you're going to do is subtract 3x from both sides, and that's going to give you 2y equals negative 3x plus 24. So we want to get y by itself, and it's attached to this 2, so we're going to divide by 2 on both sides, and that's going to give me y equals negative 3 divided by 2x plus 12. And the reason why I got 12 at the end is because 24 divided by 2 gives us 12.
Okay, but usually we don't do that.
Give me a second. Alright, so if I'm solving for x, what's going to happen is I'm going to isolate x by subtracting 2y on both sides. And that's going to give me 3x equals negative 2y plus 24. I'm going to divide by 3 on both sides. And so x is going to equal negative 2/3 y plus 8. Go ahead and try 6, 7, and 8. I know 8 is a little tricky, but go ahead and try that. As you're finishing, what's going to happen is you're trying to get m by itself. So you've got y equals mx plus b. Now you're trying to get m by itself. So you're going to subtract b from both sides. That should be the first thing you do. Then you're going to get y minus b equals mx. Again, your goal is to get m by itself. So what is m attached to?
M attached to x. So you
attached to x. So we're going to divide by x on both sides. So m is going to equal y minus b divided by x.
That would be like.
Yep.
Now we solve for b.
And then you're going to solve for b. So when you solve for b, you're going to get y equals mx plus b. And if you're trying to get b by itself, all you're going to do is subtract that mx.
Y minus mx.
Okay, so y minus mx equals b. So b equals y minus mx. So on 8, because we're skipping over 7, on 8, what's going to happen is you're going to multiply this out. Okay, so this is going to be c equals 5/9 f minus 5 times negative 32 is going to be negative 160 divided by 9. Okay, and I'm trying to get f by itself. So I'm going to add 160 divided by 9 on both sides. And if you wanted to change that into a decimal, that's totally fine, but it's going to make it a little messier later. So this is going to give you, c plus 160 divided by 9 equals 5/9 f. Now, in order to get rid of that 5/9, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay? And the reason why we're going to multiply by that reciprocal, because it's kind of like keep, change, flip. Works the same process. Okay? So, we're going to multiply by 9/5 on both sides. And that's going to give me f equals 9/5 c plus 32. Okay, and the reason why I got 32 is because 9 times 160 gives me a number over 45. And if I divide that together, that's going to give me 32. So f equals 9/5 c plus 32. If you want to go into engineering or chemistry, you're going to use that like a whole lot. You're going to write down the important pieces of this problem. Okay, so you have to spend $100. Okay, that's really important. You can purchase barbecue chicken at a cost of $1.29 per pound. You can purchase barbecue, which is spelled incorrectly. No, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, barbecue steak at $3.49.
That's not spelled right.
3.49. It's not. Okay? For the barbecue, you need at least 30 pounds of food for all of your guests. Okay? So you're writing the important pieces, not the entire thing on your piece of paper. Here is the word constraints. Okay? What does the word constraint mean? To hold back, right? Okay, to limit something, right? Okay, so when we talk about constraints, that means that we're talking about values that restrict our decision making. Okay, so for instance, if you only got $100 to spend, you're not gonna spend more than $100, right? Unless you like finesse something, right? Okay, and you can't do that in this world. Okay, 30 pounds of food, that's another constraint, right? Like you can go over it. You need at least 30 pounds, right? Okay, so if I'm going to write the constraints on this equation, it's going to be, well, first we got to define our variables. Let's call X what? Our chicken pounds. And then Y we're going to call our steak pounds. Okay? And so now we're going to write an equation, two equations based off of this problem. So the first equation I'm going to write is 1.29 times x plus 3.49y, and I'm going to set that equal to 100. Now, it says that you have to spend $100. Eventually, we're going to talk about something called an inequality, which hopefully you know at this point. And you can only spend up to $100. So really, there should be like a little alligator mouth right here. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So for right now, we're just going to keep it in equals. Okay? The other equation that we have to write is our chicken plus our steak pounds are going to equal 30. Okay? Because we want it to be more than 30, but we have to have at least 30 pounds in order to feed all the people who are coming to our house. Okay? Throwing a big party. Get excited. Okay? All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use those three methods that we used yesterday with substitution, elimination, or graphing, and we're going to solve these. So if I take this second equation and I solve for one of my variables, I'm going to solve for y on this one. Okay? I'm going to solve for y. So what's going to happen is I'm going to get y by itself. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides. And that's going to give me y equals negative x plus 30. I'm going to take this equation. And I'm going to plug it in for this y in the other equation. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to solve for how many pounds of chicken and how many pounds of steak I need in order to make this happen. So when I do that, it looks like this. Oh, no. It's too big. All right. 1.29 x plus 3.49 times negative x plus 30 equals 100. Now, if I multiply this out, I'm going to get negative 3.49x. And then I'm going to take 3.49 and multiply it by 30. Tell me what you get. Somebody help me out there because I don't know off the top of my head. What is it? 104.7. Okay. And then I'm going to combine my like terms, right? So my like terms over here, I've got 1.29x minus 3.49x, and that's going to give me negative 2.20x. Don't do this. All right, so subtract 104.7 from both sides.
Imagine.
Just me.
You can't beat me though.
And then this is going to give me negative 2.20x equals what? Negative 4.7. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2.20.
Wow.
I'm not going to erase this.
Wow.
And x is going to equal what? 0.13, because I'm not going to round up, because otherwise I'd go over my constraint. And I'm going to plug it back into one of these original equations. I would probably plug it back into here. So when I do that, I'm going to get 2.13 for my x, and then I'm going to solve for my y. My final answer would be 2.13 comma 27.87. So I would need 2.13 of chicken and 2